you need volunteers, and
Right.
volunteers are trained, and training is happening soon.
That's right. So training is starting on August 25th, and it'll end on September 18th with a swearing in at court. But in between, we've got 7 days, and it's usually around 33 hours of pre-service training, where we talk a lot about sort of the history of child welfare in this country, some of the policies and the timelines that take place when a child comes into foster care, when the court issues an order. We talk a little bit about the process, and then we talk mostly about what the CASA is going to do, which is advocate for the child. Whatever's in the child's best interests, those are the things that we're going to bring to court. And so we teach our volunteers how to connect with these kids. We talk a lot about sort of gathering of information. So we're going to be talking to the children's teachers, their therapists, their pediatricians, their parents, their foster parents, maybe their mentors. Anybody who is providing a service to the child. And we're going to use the information that we gather from those folks to figure out what this child's challenges are and what services might help them heal from whatever trauma they've experienced. And then we're going to make those recommendations to the court primarily. But we also make them in school settings. Sometimes we meet a child and we think, this child might really need a 504 plan or an IEP, and no one's ever brought that to the school's attention before. And so we might do that. We advocate for them in foster homes. Not every foster parent is necessarily ready for some of the behaviors that some of these kids have. And so we talk to them about here's what trauma looks like. And so what you're seeing isn't necessarily defiance, it's trauma playing out for this child. We advocate for them at the Department of Social Services. There are meetings there where we're all kind of talking about what is the future of this child going to look like. And sometimes we say, well, hey, the child has shared, this information with us, and this is the thing that they really want. This is something we think that they would really benefit from, and so we were going to advocate for that. And so one of our previous directors called it, like being on the side of the angels. You're really just on the side of the child. Everybody else in the case has to worry about, departmental policies and what the statutes say at this point in the case. And the judge has to worry about precedent. And we just really get to go in and say, that's nice for everybody else, but we're here just for what is in the best interest of this child, which is very freeing. So it's a good feeling, but it's a heavy lift. It's a commitment. It really is, because you're committing to a child, and sometimes these cases will go on for a year or more. And so we do ask that our volunteers really commit to that time to be with these kids.
Well, and it sounds like, you just have to. They have to have a love for kids in the community. You don't have to have a social services background necessarily, or a law background.
No. Our volunteers come from all manner of backgrounds. Some of them were in foster care themselves as children, and they have since had really good lives and kind of wanted to give something back. Others have been, we've got some doctors and some lawyers. We've got some stay-at-home moms. We've got former teachers. Former educators are fantastic causes because, they know what it looks like to look out for kids just kind of inherently. But anybody who has a heart for kids and is a good communicator is a great candidate. And then we sort of teach you the rest, the process. But really, we just want you to care and to be curious about what's happening in these kids' lives, because we ask a lot of questions, not necessarily of the kiddos, but of the people who are in the kiddos' lives, because we're looking to make things better and more stable and more in the child's favor.
And I'm sure there's a great need for volunteers.
There's always a great need. We would love to be put out of business one day because there are no children who need advocates. And unfortunately, we're not there yet. And so we kind of feel like we're the community's conscience for what happens to its most vulnerable residents, and who's more vulnerable really than an abused or neglected child. And so, there's always going to be a need for folks who can come and be a steady, stable presence, a nurturing presence in these children's lives, but also sort of be thinking strategically, okay, I've spent some time with this kiddo. If this were my child, what would I want for them? What services would I want them to have? What life would I want them to have? And then to kind of pursue that in the best way that we can.
Wow, what a great opportunity. It's
a good program. It's, again, you're fighting the good fight for these kids, and we, we're just part of the process. We work cooperatively with social workers from the departments of social services around here, with the local therapists. We help the guardians ad litem, who are essentially the children's attorneys, gather information for court. So we're part of a much bigger team that is child focused and child centered. But we're just, like I said, we're just regular citizens who are kind of weighing in on this process, which is confidential and closed to the general public. But we sort of bring that community perspective. What does this community want for these children? That's the voice that we kind of bring to the table.
So the training is on the 25th.
Starts on the 25th, yep. The deadline for filing applications with us is August 11th. That gives us a few days to kind of go through them and bring you in for an interview, get you set up with background checks. Everybody has to have criminal and CPS background checks. And then we get you into training. We kind of, go over all the basic information. And when you leave, in all likelihood, you'll have a case because we're pretty busy right now.
So if I need more information, where do I get that?
Yes, you can go to rappahannockcasa.com. That's our website. You can email us at rappcasa@gmail.com, and you can call us at 540-710-6199.